Everyone, welcome to Aspire Academy. So today we are going to deal with class 12th topic, that is ecosystem. So the subtopic is structure and the function of ecosystem. So let's see what is ecosystem, what does it comprises of, what are the components of ecosystem. So firstly, ecosystem, when we are talking about the structure and the function of the ecosystem, firstly, the concept of the ecosystem was put forward by A.G. Tansley in year 1935. Okay. So in year 1935, A.G. Tansley have put forward this concept of ecosystem. So how did he define the ecosystem? According to him, the ecosystem is the whole system including not only the living organism, but also the whole complex of the physical factor forming what we call the environment. So physical factor together with the living organism, it is known as ecosystem. Okay, so ecosystem is the ecological unit. Okay, we can say ecosystem is a major ecological unit and it has both structure and function. Okay, so when we are talking about the functional part of the ecosystem, how does the ecosystem function? So there is one thing, that is the flow of energy. Flow of energy continuously take place and the cycling of the material. Okay, nutrient cycle hota hai. In this way, we can call that ecosystem is also having the functional part, that is flow of energy and cycling of the material. Continuously, the energy flow from one trophic level to the another trophic level, as we know, producers, that is the green plant, they are eaten by herbivores and herbivores are eaten by carnivores. So in that sequence, when we see, there is continuously flow of energy. Okay. Now, according to E.P. Odum, okay, E.P. Odum, what does he told about the ecosystem? According to him, the ecosystem is a basic functional unit of the organism. Ecosystem क्या है? Functional unit है of organism and their environment. Again, the living organism are related to the environmental factors. Okay, so environmental factor and the organism, they are interacting with each other and with their own component also. So all the ecosystem on the earth, let's take the example of mountain ecosystem, desert ecosystem, aquatic or pond ecosystem, forest ecosystem. So various types of ecosystem are there. These are natural ecosystem. Okay. So all the ecosystem on the earth are connected to each other. We cannot isolate them. Okay. So their function cannot be isolated. They are interrelated to each other. And when, if we want some of the ecosystem to be self-sufficient, so rarely it is possible, because कुछ ना कुछ तो connection होगा ही different ecosystem में. Isolation में तो बिल्कुल भी we cannot find this. So a complete self-sufficient ecosystem rarely found in nature. Okay. Now, the ecosystem structure, that means how the ecosystem is formed. What are the components of the ecosystem? Okay. So ecosystem is composed of the two most important components, that is the biotic component. The biotic, bio as the name suggests, bio means living. So it comprises of living component, and in that living component, it is included plants and animals. Okay. So the abiotic component of the ecosystem is abiotic component, that means non-living part. Ecosystem में जो non-living part है, it is natural but non-living. Like water, air, nutrients, solar energy. So all these are non-living component, and non-living component can be called as abiotic component of the ecosystem. So these two component of the ecosystem does not stand in isolation. अकेले तो नहीं रहते, independently they are not working, they are working together. So continuously they are being showing interaction. Okay, so rather they continuously interact with each other, and then the function of the ecosystem and the structure of the ecosystem gets completed. Now we'll see what are the biotic and the abiotic component. How can we classify? Okay, so ecosystem broadly we can classify them among abiotic and biotic factors. Among the biotic, that is a living component. So this is a living component. It will include what? The first is the producer, and then consumer, and last one is decomposers. Producers, when we are talking about the producers, okay, so producers are the green plants, green plants are the producers. Consumer में herbivores भी consumer है, primary consumer. There is herbivores, they are the primary consumer. Okay, again carnivores भी जो है, they are also the consumer but they are secondary consumer. ठीक है, फर्स्ट लेवल पे कंज्यूमर कौन है? फर्स्ट कार्निवोर्स क्या है? कार्निवोर्स दे आर द सेकेंडरी, ओके, सेकेंड लेवल पे है. एंड टर्शरी दैट इज वी कैन कॉल इट सेकेंडरी कार्निवोर्स जो होंगे वो थर्ड लेवल पे आएंगे, थर्ड लेवल ऑफ कंज्यूमर. सो ऑल आर इनडायरेक्टली दे आर द कंज्यूमर. एंड द लास्ट कम द डिकम्पोजर्स विच इंक्लूड्स बैक्टीरिया एंड फंजाई. ठीक है, बैक्टीरिया एंड फंजाई दे आर इंक्लूडेड इन द डिकम्पोजर्स. Okay, so at last, producer, consumer, decomposers all comes under biotic component. Okay, and in abiotic factor we can call air, water, sunlight. Okay, so all these many more we can all add environmental factors. So all are included in abiotic, and rest all producers, consumer, decomposers, they are the biotic factors. Now, simply in separate form, we'll study about the biotic component of the ecosystem. So, the biotic component of the ecosystem is include what? Living organism. Simply, living organism जितने होंगे आप उन्हें biotic component में count कर सकते हो. So, that can be classified as either to biotic, that means living. So, it will include what? Plants and animals. इसमें आएंगे plants and animals. When we are talking about plants, so there is producers. And animals में आ गए consumers, depending on how they get their food. So, producers are those, they prepare their food, and consumer, they are just utilizing the food that is produced by the producer. Okay, so producers, they are autotrophs. We can also call them as autotrophs or self-feeder. मतलब अपने खाने के इंतजाम ये खुद करते हैं. They can prepare the food by the help of, by the process of photosynthesis. Okay, utilizing the solar energy. So producers, they are the autotrophs, they are self-feeder also. So they can make their food for their survival using simple inorganic substances or the component and sunlight from the environment. So we know the producers, they utilize the solar energy and they use the carbon dioxide from the environment. They use water from the environment. Okay, sunlight they need sunlight and what? Chlorophyll. Okay, chlorophyll. In the presence of sunlight, chlorophyll, carbon dioxide and water together, it forms what? Food, that is a glucose. ठीक है, तो क्या form होता है? C6H12O6. Okay, in this form. And energy. Okay, so energy के form में photosynthesis होके क्या करते हैं plants? अपना food बनाते हैं, तो food in the form of glucose. Okay, glucose के form में food produce होगे. In the presence of sunlight, not in the absence. Okay, so for instance, let's see the green plants on the land, they are the producer. जमीन पे अगर आप देखो green जितने दिखोगे, जितने भी plants green होंगे, they are the producer. Okay, the small algae, even the algae, which is aquatic algae, you can call it. ठीक है, algae which are very small, aquatic ecosystem में पाए जाते हैं, they are also the producer. तो pond ecosystem या aquatic ecosystem में algae, they are the producer. And on the land, the plants are the producer. So producers can prepare their food with the help of sunlight. Okay. Now, consumers. Consumer, that means they cannot prepare their food. They will consume, just consume the food which is already prepared by the producer. इसमें सबसे पहले आते हैं herbivores, then carnivores. Okay. Then consumer can also be called as heterotrophs. जैसे green plants, they are autotrophs. So consumer, they are heterotrophs. That means they cannot prepare their food and directly or indirectly, they are dependent on other animal or simply they depend on plant for their food or they depend on other animal for their food. Okay. So those organisms which can directly or indirectly depend on the food provided by the producers. Okay. So consumers क्या करते हैं? Depending on their food habit, we can just classify them more. ठीक है? So 4 types of consumers. Firstly, herbivores. We know herb eating. Herbivores क्या होते हैं? They are herb eaters. Deer, rabbit, cattle, and plant eaters. Okay, herb, or you can call it they are the plant eater, and they feed directly on the producer, and producers plants है, so directly ये feed करते हैं herbivores किस पे, producer पे. Okay, so they are referred to as primary consumer. पहला level है consumer का, that is herbivores. First consumer are the herbivores, and carnivores they will be the second, definitely second consumer हो जाएंगे. ठीक है, carnivores they are the flesh eater and they feed on herbivores. ये carnivores किसे खाएंगे, herbivores को. herbivores किसे खाते हैं, they are eating the green plants. So herbivores they are the primary consumer, but carnivore secondary consumer. They are known as secondary consumer, and the examples we can take snake, frog, okay, lion, tiger even they are included. The animal feeding on secondary consumer. Now secondary consumer को भी जो खाते हैं they are known as tertiary, and tertiary level पे there is eagle, lion, tiger. So lion, tiger tertiary level, उससे lower level पे है, ठीक है, that is secondary consumer is the carnivores. So omnivores are the organism that eat both plant and animal. Examples में omnivores का सबसे common example है cockroach, pig, rat, humans, crow. Okay, now comes decomposers. Decomposers का काम क्या है, complex organic material को they decompose or break down into, convert into simpler inorganic. So complex, जितने भी complex organic matter है, organic matter they get converted into simpler but what, inorganic, simple inorganic matter. ये काम किसका होता है, decomposers का. They convert this complex organic to simpler inorganic. So they absorb the soluble nutrient as their food. ये decomposers जो soluble form में nutrients absorb करते हैं, and the bacteria and the fungi they are the most common examples of decomposers, even mites also. Now comes abiotic component. What does the term abiotic represent? Abiotic, that means non-living component. They are the non-living component of the ecosystem. So since we know the structure of ecosystem is formed by the biotic and the abiotic component, and since we are studying about the abiotic component, that means the non-living component. So abiotic non-living है, और इसमें क्या include होगा, all the physical and chemical factors that influences the living organism, and that physical and chemical can be air, water, soil, rocks, temperature, humidity. Okay, so it is an assemblage of organic and inorganic substance present in an ecosystem. So it is an assemblage. क्या है, abiotic component आप देखोगे कि organic and inorganic substance present in the whole ecosystem. So the non-living component are very essential because the living world cannot sustain without this non-living. Okay, that means plant and animals cannot live in isolation without this abiotic component. So without sunlight, water, air, ठीक है, minerals, life cannot exist. Okay, so biotic का जहां भी नाम आए, we can count plants, animals, microbes, decomposers among the biotic, and among the abiotic factor, light, minerals, nutrients, rock, ये सब हो गया, temperature, water, humidity, सब abiotic में, ठीक है, they are the physical factors. Now the ecosystem structure. So interaction of this biotic and abiotic component in this ecosystem is very important. So due to this interaction, connection between the biotic and abiotic component, it result in the physical structure of this ecosystem. जो हमारा ecosystem का structure बना है वो बिल्कुल biotic and abiotic component से ही बना है. The species composition of the ecosystem can be determined by the identification and enumeration of the plants and animal species. तो species का identification करना हो या enumeration, that means numbers कितने हैं total organism का, can be done. The different species occupy different level, okay, in the vertical distribution, and that is known as stratification. Since we see in the forest, the base, ठीक है, base में क्या होता है, grasses होते हैं, उसके ऊपर थोड़े से herbs and all are there, उससे थोड़े ऊपर shrubs, उससे ऊपर क्या होते हैं, trees. So at the base level, the vertical, we can see the vertical distribution इसी को बोलते हैं स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन और लेयर्स, द डिफरेंट लेयर. ओके, सो at the different species occupy different level in the vertical distribution. So this vertical distribution or layeration, okay, that is known as stratification, which happens in the forest. For example, the vertical distribution of the forest ecosystem, the species at the topmost strata, जो topmost पे होते हैं वो क्या है? Trees है. Okay, उससे नीचे क्या है? Second, the shrubs. Then उससे भी नीचे है herbs, उसके भी नीचे है grasses. Okay, so ये layeration है, that is stratification of the forest ecosystem. In this way, same aquatic ecosystem में भी इस तरह से होते हैं. Phytoplankton, फिर zooplankton, फिर smaller fish, फिर bigger fishes. Okay. Now, what about the function of the ecosystem? How the function of the ecosystem gets sustained? Okay, so ecosystem is a discrete, structural, functional and life-sustaining environmental system. जहाँ पे life possible है, structure है उनका, functional unit है. So, abiotic component provide all the substance or the matrix for the synthesis of organic substance. Organic component, ठीक है, organic से क्या बनता है? Okay, first of all, organic substance, how they are produced? By the inorganic form. Organic substance are या organic part जो ecosystem का वो बनता कैसे है? Inorganic form से. Inorganic matter forms organic. Inorganic में क्या हो गया आपका? Rock, mineral, salt, ठीक है? All the non-living part, and they help in the formation of organic part. That means photosynthesis plant को करने में help करेगा. Okay. So abiotic component provide the matrix for the synthesis of the organic component. तो यहाँ पे inorganic part कौन provide करता है? Abiotic component. और उससे जो आपका organic product बन रहा है, so they are included in biotic component. In this way, both are linked. Biotic और abiotic interlinked है. The synthesis and preservation process involve the energy exchange. Okay. And this energy comes from the sun. We know ultimate source of energy for this whole universe is the solar energy. The sun is the source of energy and sun is providing us the energy, that is solar radiation, solar energy. So amount of the living biomass of the living organism present in a unit area of the ecosystem is known as standing crop. Total amount of the mass, या total amount of the living biomass of the organism at each different trophic level, ये standing crop कहलाता है. And the जितने भी inorganic nutrients present है at that particular time in that given area, ठीक है, at any time in the soil, water, so that is standing state. So standing crop में living part included है, living matters, living component, and in the standing state they are dead form. ठीक है, dead matters है and they are inorganic. They are inorganic matter in the dead form. And these are living or organic. Organic matter living form में present होंगे standing crops. Now, the component of ecosystem, what are the component are seen to function? So here we are studying about the functional unit of the ecosystem. So हमारा जो ecosystem है, इनका function जो चलता है, they consist certain aspects. What are that? Productivity होता है हमारे ecosystem में, that means photosynthesis होगा जिससे plants अपने food बनाएंगे. ठीक है, photosynthesis goes on. This is one of the function, and another decomposition goes on by the decomposers. Then energy flow, which is because of the food chain. Energy flow takes place within the food chain, and finally the nutrient cycle goes on. जितने भी carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, so all the nutrients are just returned back to the environment or the soil. ठीक है, so by the nutrient cycle, which is also known as biogeochemical cycle. Biogeochemical cycle. So these all are the functional component of the ecosystem. So ये कैसा component है? These are the component of ecosystem, but functional component of the ecosystem is this productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycle. Now, the abiotic component of the pond ecosystem. If we take an example of the pond ecosystem में abiotic part कौन सा है? The non-living. Okay, so non-living part in this pond ecosystem include water. Water is non-living. Dissolved inorganic material और जितने भी organic nutrients भी है, all are abiotic. Rich soil deposits है there. Solar input है. ठीक है, टेम्परेचर, अदर क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशन, ऑल टुगेदर ये क्या है, सारे एबायोटिक कंपोनेंट है. सो दीज ऑल टुगेदर रेगुलेट द रेट एंड द फंक्शन ऑफ द एंटायर पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम. तो पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम में सिर्फ फिशेस और फाइटोप्लैंक्टन, ज़ूओप्लैंक्टन से वर्क नहीं होगा. इट रिक्वायर वाटर, न्यूट्रिएंट, मिनरल्स, सोलर एनर्जी. ओके, नाउ द बायोटिक कंपोनेंट ऑफ द पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम. व्हाट आर द बायोटिक? अगर हम लोग पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम की बात करें तो बायोटिक दैट मींस लिविंग पार्ट वहां पे कौन है? ऑटोट्रॉप्स. सबसे पहले इकोसिस्टम स्टार्ट्स विद प्रोड्यूसर, ऑटोट्रॉप्स. सो ऑटोट्रॉपिक कंपोनेंट क्या हुआ हमारा पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम में? दे आर द फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स दैट कैन बी एल्गी, ऑल्सो फ्लोटिंग, जितने भी फ्लोटिंग प्लांट्स है, स्मॉलर प्लांट्स. देन सबमर्ज्ड plants are also there, marginal plants, these are found in the edges of the pond. पॉन्ड के किनारे किनारे साइड में मिलेगा. दिस सबमर्ज्ड प्लांट, मार्जिनल, फ्लोटिंग, एल्गी. सो ये सारा काम करने वाला है ऑटोट्रॉप्स का. दे विल एक्ट एज अ प्रोड्यूसर. सो दे विल एक्ट एज प्रोड्यूसर. ना हेट्रोट्रॉपिक कंपोनेंट भी होंगे हमारे पॉन्ड में. सो व्हाट आर द हेट्रोट्रॉप्स? दैट मींस हेट्रोट्रॉप्स विल ईट अप द ऑटोट्रॉप पार्ट्स. मतलब या तो जो हेट्रोट्रॉप कंज्यूमर यहाँ पे होंगे, दे विल ईटिंग, they'll be eating planktons, phytoplanktons, algae and all this. Okay, so they are the heterotrophs, and the heterotrophs are zooplankton. Free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. जितने भी ऑर्गेनिज्म होंगे फ्री स्विमिंग कर रहे हो और बॉटम dwelling, all are zooplanktons. Now last one, decomposers. जो डेड ऑर्गेनिक मैटर, यहाँ पे जो एल्गी, जितने भी फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स, ऑटोट्रॉपिक कंपोनेंट एंड हेटेरोट्रॉपिक कंपोनेंट, व्हेन दे डाई, जब डेड हो जाएंगे तो उनको डिकम्पोज करने का काम डिकम्पोजर्स करता है, फंजाई, बैक्टीरिया, ऑल. सो दे आर आल्सो प्रेजेंट, फंजाई, बैक्टीरिया, डिकम्पोजर्स आर आल्सो प्रेजेंट इन दी पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम. सो इन दिस वे द इकोसिस्टम, पॉन्ड भी खुद एक इकोसिस्टम, क्योंकि वहां पे भी लिविंग और नॉन लिविंग ऑल द कंपोनेंट्स आर देयर. नाउ द स्ट्रक्चर एंड द फंक्शन ऑफ द इकोसिस्टम, द सेम इकोसिस्टम जिसके बारे में हम लोग बात कर रहे थे. ठीक है, मार्जिनल साइड में भी बहुत सारे प्लांट्स है, सबमर्ज्ड प्लांट, डूबे हुए प्लांट भी है. ओके, एल्गी है. सो दिस इज द पॉन्ड इकोसिस्टम, सेल्फ सस्टेन्ड यूनिट है. यहाँ पे सारे प्रोड्यूसर से लेके प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर, सेकेंडरी कंज्यूमर्स, ऑल आर देयर. हियर have well exhibited basic abiotic and biotic component. Biotic are there within this pond. ठीक है, और abiotic component sunlight, temperature, heat, okay, moisture, air, water, everything is present. So together जब biotic और abiotic linked up हो जाते हैं, so the ecosystem can be self maintained. So pond ecosystem perform all the function as a whole, क्योंकि इनके पास ऑटोट्रॉप्स भी है जो फूड प्रिपेयर करे एंड हेट्रोट्रॉप्स भी है. ठीक है, सो ऑटोट्रॉप सिंथेसाइजेस द ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल, द फूड, फ्रॉम whom, कहां से बनाते हैं? बाय द इनऑर्गेनिक सब्सटेंस व्हिच आर प्रेजेंट एज अ रॉक एंड मिनरल्स, जो इनऑर्गेनिक फॉर्म में प्रेजेंट है. बट हाउ? विद द हेल्प ऑफ सोलर एनर्जी. विदाउट सोलर एनर्जी ये जो सिस्टम है, ट्रॉपिक लेवल है, वो स्टार्ट ही नहीं हो सकता है, फूड चेन स्टार्ट नहीं हो सकता, बिकॉज without the sunlight plant cannot prepare their food. Okay, now autotrophs are consumed. We know autotrophs hai, they are the producer. Okay, so they will be consumed by heterotrophs. So heterotrophs totally they are dependent on autotrophs. Autotrophs producer hai and they will be producing food जिसको heterotrophs खाएगा. And further heterotrophs में बहुत सारे आगे, प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर, सेकेंडरी कंज्यूमर, टर्शियरी कंज्यूमर, top level consumer also. When the top level consumer will die, ठीक है, they'll again return back to the soil by the decomposers. उसे decomposers क्या करेगा? break down करके फिर से soil में वापस दे देगा. And because of this decomposition, mineralization take place. Decompose dead organic matter, बाद में minerals formation में help करते हैं. ठीक है, mineralization of the dead matter and releases them back to the environment and reused by the autotroph. ये cyclic process है. ठीक है, this cycle of fixation of the inorganic material into organic, finally what is happening? Plant जो food बना रहा है with the help of inorganic, और finally the decomposers they'll convert back. मतलब inorganic matter जो है, inorganic matter is being converted to organic, and organic matter will again be converted into inorganic. So inorganic से organic किसने convert किया? Here there are the producers, and organic will be, so firstly inorganic matters are converted to organic by the producers. अब क्या होगा, प्रोड्यूसर्स ने ऑर्गेनिक में कन्वर्ट कर दिया, ऑर्गेनिक मैटर अगेन बाय द डिकम्पोजर्स, इट विल अगेन रिटर्न बैक, डिकम्पोजर्स will return them back to the inorganic form so that again producer can use it. तो ये एक cyclic pathway चलता है, ठीक है, decomposition of organic matter to inorganic material and it is repeated over and over and over again. So this is unidirectional movement of the energy from lower trophic level to the lower trophic level, that means producers topmost है, the base, primary consumer second, tertiary, ठीक है, secondary consumer third trophic level and secondary consumer third पे है, tertiary fourth trophic level पे. So unidirectional flow of energy हो रहा है, energy is unidirectional form में movement from the lower trophic level to the higher one, ठीक है, and its dissipation and loss of in the form of heat also take place, energy loss हो रहा है heat के form में at each trophic level. Okay, now about the productivity का जब बात आए, that means plant are the producers, तो यहाँ पे producers है plants, they will help in photosynthesis. After doing this photosynthesis, plant will add productivity. So for the sustainable functioning of the ecosystem, the constant input solar energy का चाहिए. Without the solar energy, the productivity cannot be formed. Okay. So productivity, if we know, it should be as the rate of synthesis of energy, okay, containing organic matter or the biomass, and the rate at which the sunlight is captured by the producers to convert that solar energy into chemical energy. Okay. So solar energy is being converted into chemical energy. Okay. तो ये केमिकल एनर्जी किसके फॉर्म में बन रहा है, ऑर्गेनिक पार्ट है, ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड है, और सोलर एनर्जी इज इनऑर्गेनिक. ओके, सो प्रोडक्टिविटी क्या है, द रेट ऑफ सिंथेसिस ऑफ एनर्जी कंटेनिंग ऑर्गेनिक मैटर, जिसमें जो सिंथेसिस हो रहा है एनर्जी का, ऑर्गेनिक मैटर उसमें बन रहा है, बायोमास, एंड द रेट एट विच द सनलाइट इज कैप्चर्ड बाय द प्रोड्यूसर्स to convert this inorganic matter into organic. So that is known as productivity. So the branch of biology which deal with this production, ठीक है, of organic matter, जिसमें हम लोग पढ़ते हैं कि organic matter कैसे बन रहा है inorganic से, is different component and that is known as ecology. Now productivity भी दो types के, that is primary productivity and secondary productivity. So primary productivity, that means the plant are the primary producers. Okay, so in this way we'll see what is primary productivity and what is secondary productivity. Primary productivity. So what is primary productivity? So we can say the primary productivity, it refers to the rate. क्या है ये? Productivity. It is a rate at which the plant and the other photosynthetic organism produce organic compound in the ecosystem. That means using the inorganic material, ठीक है, inorganic material, using this, the photosynthetic organism or the plants, they will convert it into organic material, organic substance. So inorganic substance will be converted into organic. So the rate at which, किस speed में, किस rate पे, okay, the photosynthetic organism will produce this organic compound in the ecosystem, that is the primary productivity. Okay, so primary productivity किस चीज पे depend करता है? It depends upon the plant species. Which of the plant species is there inhabiting in that particular area? Okay, so if this is a land, so at that particular area, ठीक है, वो particular area में कौन से species है, that will determine the primary productivity of that area. Okay, so it also depends on the variety of environmental factor. Yes, definitely. Availability of the nutrient is also most important, and the photosynthetic capacity of the plant. That means how and the rate at which the photosynthetic plant, they will perform the photosynthesis and the nutrient is available or not. And if it is available, so how much content? So all this together helps in the primary productivity. Okay. Therefore, we can say the primary productivity varies in the different type of the ecosystem. Like if we take an example of tropical forest, temperate forest, grassland, तो ट्रॉपिकल वाले जो फॉरेस्ट है उनका प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी हायर होगा देन द टेम्परेट. ओके, so in this way the primary productivity of the plant species differ, ठीक है, depending upon the ecosystem. So there are the two aspects of primary productivity. We can classify this primary productivity as gross primary, gross total आप बोल सकते हो. Okay, it refer to the entire photosynthetic production. एक प्लांट ने टोटल कितने अमाउंट ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड बनाए, सो दैट इज द ग्रॉस प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी. So that entire total photosynthetic production by that plant and the total organic matter synthesized by the plant per unit area and time. Okay, per unit area and time is known as the gross primary productivity. Primary productivity is the total organic matter which is synthesized by the plant per unit area, per unit time. Okay. Now, we'll see the other aspect is net primary productivity. So, there is a slight difference between the gross and the net. Okay. So, the net primary, net मतलब जो बच के after subtracting many of the factors, जो result में last में जो बचा, that is a net. It refers to the weight of the organic matter stored by the producer, that is a plant, green plant, in a unit area or a volume per unit time. Okay, so total weight of the organic produce या organic substance which is produced, जितना substance बना उसका weight कितना है. Okay, so net primary productivity is equal to the rate of organic matter produced by the photosynthetic material or the photosynthesis by the process of photosynthesis minus, so this is the important thing, we have to minus the rate of respiration. So simply gross primary productivity minus respiration, simply respiration, that is the amount of the energy which is utilized by the plant itself. Okay, अपने खुद के फंक्शन के लिए जो प्लांट ने यूज अप किया, दैट इज द रेस्पिरेशन. सो ग्रॉस में आप टोटल रेस्पिरेशन माइनस कर दो, सो दैट विल बी द नेट प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी. सो वी कैन से दिस नेट प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी क्या है, weight of the organic matter which is stored after utilization in the respiration, जो बचा, जो स्टोर किया प्लांट ने, so that is a net primary productivity. So if we compare the annual net primary productivity of whole this biosphere, तो टोटल बायोस्फीयर का प्राइमरी जो नेट प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी है एनुअल, दैट इज 170 बिलियन टन. ओके, ड्राई वेट है ये of organic matter which is mainly contributed by land. So total productivity, that is the net primary productivity, is 170 billion. Okay, and rest part, the ocean, उसमें आप देखोगे तो ocean despite occupying 70% of the area, ठीक है, 70% of the surface are responsible for only 55 billion ton productivity. So ocean जो productivity कर रहा है वो just है 55 billion ton, and the land part if we say, so total is 170. Okay, total 170, land उसमें कितना कर रहा है 115 billion ton. Okay, so simply we can see if we compare the primary productivity. Okay, so aquatic part जो हमारे अर्थ सरफेस पे है, पानी कितना है 70% है, टेरेस्ट्रियल पार्ट लैंड कितना है 30%. ओके, एंड इफ वी सी द अर्थ प्रोडक्शन, अर्थ में एक्वेटिक पार्ट जो प्रोडक्शन कर रहा है दैट इज 55 बिलियन टन. ओके, एंड टेरेस्ट्रियल पार्ट 115 बिलियन टन. सो इन टोटल वी कैन सी टोटल कितना हो गया 170 बिलियन टन टोटल बायोस्फीयर में. जो बायोस्फीयर में टोटल प्रोडक्शन कितना है, इट इज 170 बिलियन टन. And in that 170, 115 is produced by the terrestrial part, that is the land, और सिर्फ 55 part जो बिलियन टन है ये कंट्रीब्यूट aquatic medium करते हैं. Okay, so terrestrial ecosystem. If we see terrestrial ecosystem का example हो सकता है tropical forest, okay, tropical forest, okay, temperate forest, even temperate forest. We can also say there is grassland ecosystem, grassland, और even desert, क्योंकि desert का जो productivity है, ठीक है, that will be much less as compared to the grassland. So सबसे ज्यादा जो ecosystem में productivity होगा, that is tropical, because it is getting the proper sunlight, it is toward the equator, equator से nearest है ये. Temperate is little bit farther. Okay, so tropical forest will produce much more productivity में ये ज्यादा contribute करेगा, and compared to this temperate will do less, and grassland more less than the temperate and the tropical. Okay, and if we talk about the aquatic ecosystem, so there coral reefs are the major helper in productivity. Okay, now if we differentiate between the net primary productivity and the gross primary productivity, so what is the basic difference between this? Okay, so net, that means after respiration, जो plant ने utilize किया उसे आप deduct कर दो. Okay, so it is the amount of the organic matter stored, जो plant ultimately store करके रखेगा after utilization, जो use करना था वो कर चुका. So it is stored by the producers per unit time and per unit area. Okay, ये एक difference हो गया. One thing this is. And what is the gross primary productivity? So gross is the total. So it is the amount of the organic matter which is produced by the producer. जो producer ने total कितना बनाया था per unit time and area में, ठीक है, total बनाया कितना था, that is the gross primary productivity. So what is the organic matter which is stored? Store कब किया? After deducting the respiration part. So net primary productivity is equal to organic matter which is produced by the producer minus the utilization in the respiration. Okay, so and what is net primary? It is gross. Simply we can say gross primary productivity minus respiration is the net. Okay, so gross, we have seen total amount of the productivity which is produced by the producer. So it is the rate of increase in the body weight of the producer plus the loss of that is suffered through respiration. ठीक है, whatever it has been lost, उसको आप क्या करो वापस, if you put, so it is a rate of increase in the productivity. Net primary में loss जो हुआ respiration में वो आप फिर add कर दो. So that is the gross primary productivity. Okay. So if you include the respiration loss or the damages, all that if it is included in the net, so together it will contribute to gross primary productivity. So this is the basic difference. Now, what is the secondary productivity? Firstly, we have discussed about the primary productivity, जिसमें producers बहुत important role play करते हैं. Okay. So now about the secondary productivity. So what is secondary productivity? It is the increase in the biomass. Okay, simply we can see it is increase in the biomass. We can write even increase in biomass. Okay, so secondary productivity, it is a rate of the biomass formation or energy fixation by heterotrophic organisms such as grazers and decomposers. So increase in the biomass, ठीक है, so simply increase in the biomass will be performed by herbivores, ठीक है, herbs खाने वाले, increase in the biomass by the herbivores. So it is the rate of the biomass formation or the energy fixation by the heterotrophic organisms such as decomposers as well as grazers. So simply we can count them as consumers. Okay, increase in the biomass by the consumer, we can also say So these derive, so consumer, how will they derive their energy? From the photosynthetic plant and other autotrophs. So either directly or indirectly. Definitely consumers को जो nutrition मिलता है, energy मिलता है, directly or indirectly, they depend on the producers. Okay. So secondary productivity, it is a rate at which the consumer convert that chemical energy, consumer, because consumer क्या खाते हैं? The product which is produced by the producer. So that means producer ने जो food बनाया after photosynthesis, that is organic substance. Okay, so secondary productivity में क्या हो रहा है? Rate at which the consumer convert organic substance, okay, organic substance. So this chemical substance को ही आप बोल सकते हो chemical substance. Okay, chemical energy of their food into their own biomass. So इसे consumers क्या अपने biomass में और add करेंगे. Okay. So they convert the chemical energy of their food into their own biomass. So that is the secondary productivity. Like we are eating the food and our body weight is increasing. ठीक है? तो कोई भी organism जो भी food derive करा after eating food, it is they are getting energy and the biomass increases. So that is a secondary productivity. Okay. So primary productivity and secondary productivity, if we differentiate between them, so primary is a first level pe ho gaya productivity. It is the production of the organic matter by the producer. Okay, producer jo organic matter produce kare by the photosynthesis, so directly that is primary productivity. Next, what is another point about the primary productivity? It is due to synthesis of the fresh organic matter from the inorganic raw material. So inorganic material is converted into organic. Okay. So simply it is a synthesis of the fresh organic matter from the inorganic raw material. Okay. Or that inorganic raw material can be minerals, soil, nutrients, all this. Okay. So the whole process of production in this primary productivity fast hai because they are getting the sunlight. Okay. And using the sunlight, they are performing photosynthesis. So we can say the primary productivity का जो rate है वो high fast होता है. Okay. Now secondary productivity, increase in the biomass of the consumer simply. So it is the production of the organic matter by the consumer. Okay. Organic consumer will produce organic matter. So organic matter will be converted into organic. The same thing will happen. ठीक है, प्रोडक्शन ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक मैटर बाय द कंज्यूमर. तो कंज्यूमर खुद भी तो ऑर्गेनिक है. ओके, सो इट इज ड्यू टू द सिंथेसिस ऑफ ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल फ्रॉम ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल. सो ऑर्गेनिक इफ इट इज कन्वर्टेड टू एन ऑर्गेनिक, सो दैट मीन्स फ्लो ऑफ एनर्जी हो रहा है यहाँ पे, फ्लो ऑफ एनर्जी. नाउ द प्रोसेस ऑफ प्रोडक्शन इज क्वाइट स्लो. ओके, नाउ व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द प्रोडक्टिविटी लेवल, ओके, डिफरेंट इकोसिस्टम में प्रोडक्टिविटी जो प्रोडक्टिविटी का लेवल होता है दे डिफर. सो द प्रोडक्टिविटी लेवल्स ऑफ एन इकोसिस्टम डिपेंड्स ऑन सर्टेन फैक्टर्स. प्लांट स्पीशीज, किस तरह का प्लांट स्पीशीज है इन दैट एरिया, देयर फोटोसिंथेटिक कैपेसिटी. लाइक इफ वी टेक एन एग्जांपल ऑफ द लैंड, ठीक है, अगर आप लैंड का एग्जांपल ले लो, सो हियर वी आर हैविंग ट्रीज. ठीक है, एट डिफरेंट लेवल, कुछ ग्रासेस होंगे, कुछ शर्ब्स होंगे, हर्ब्स होंगे, ट्रीज होंगे. सो एट डिफरेंट लेवल, अलग अलग लेवल पे द प्रोडक्टिविटी विल बी डन. द टॉप मोस्ट द ट्रीज दे विल प्रोड्यूस मच मोर. ओके, सो एज वी कम टूवर्ड द ग्रासेस जो लैंड पे है, ठीक है, विच इज नॉट गेटिंग प्रॉपर सनलाइट, आफ्टर फिल्ट्रेशन दे आर गेटिंग द सनलाइट, तो इनका प्रोडक्टिविटी ग्रासेस का थोड़ा कम होगा. देन शर्ब्स विल प्रोड्यूस लिटिल बिट मोर देन द ग्रासेस. But the trees, they will show much more higher productivity. So the photosynthetic capacity of the plant, they will also determine the productivity. The plant species will determine the productivity. The type of the nutrient that plant or the land that the land has. ठीक है, उस land में कौन सा nutrient है which is being utilized by the plant, so that also determines the productivity. Solar radiation, precipitation and the annual number of there is number of environmental factor, all humidity, light, temperature. Okay, so humidity, light, temperature, okay, minerals, all determines the productivity of the ecosystem. Simply ये हम लोग land ecosystem के बारे में बोल रहे हैं. But if we take an example of aquatic ecosystem like pond, ocean, so in that pond and ocean, what light जो है, light that pond and जो ocean ecosystem है, they on the surface they are receiving the light. So यहाँ पे क्या है, light they are having, and at the base part mostly the minerals. So aquatic ecosystem में light और minerals main role play करता productivity provide करने में, but here on the land we have humidity, light, temperature, minerals, all these factors. So finally land का जो ecosystem में productivity higher होता है as compared to the aquatic ecosystem. Okay. Now on the basis of the productivity, the ecosystem can also be divided into 4 types. Okay, so 4 types of ecosystem we can classify. Higher productivity वाले ecosystem भी है, like coral reef and estuaries. Medium productivity कहाँ पे होता है, agricultural field में, and temperate forest. Okay, and less productivity, grassland. Low productivity, here we can see deep sea. मतलब ocean के जो bottom part पे है, sunlight cannot penetrate. Okay, so that part is totally dark. So dark है, that means light नहीं है, only minerals are there, so the productivity is much less. Okay. Now, what are the factors that affect the primary productivity? कौन से factors? Solar radiation, yes. जितना sunlight bright होगा, okay, sun is the ultimate source of energy. We know very well, maximum sunlight is there. So there will be maximum photosynthesis. And maximum photosynthesis होगा, मतलब जो net primary productivity, the stored food will be much more. Temperature also determines this primary productivity. Cold climate में क्या होगा, productivity less होगा, लेकिन tropical region, tropical forest में we have seen the productivity is much more. So the productivity of temperate forest as compared to the tropical, the tropical में ज़्यादा है, temperate में कम है. Okay, and this here we can say that temperature also plays a role in productivity. Moisture, definitely rain and the humidity increases the productivity of the ecosystem. Decrease in the water, ठीक है, water अगर कम हो जाए, so scarcity of water, it again affects the primary productivity. Nutrient availability, so nutrients are essential for the growth of the producer. Nutrients are acting as a inorganic material or the substance which helps them to prepare their food. Okay, so nutrient deficient region अगर होगा, ये soil में nutrient की कमी है, तो productivity definitely will decrease. Okay, productivity will decrease. Now, decomposition. What is decomposition? Simply, decomposers are the organism that helps in the decomposition. So, what is decomposition? It is a breakdown process of the organic material into simple inorganic substance. So, simply we can say the breakdown of complex organic material, like it can be a bigger leaves. Okay. So, big leaves अगर टूट के after being decomposers, they are acting on it, it will be converted into smaller fragments. So, simple inorganic molecules may convert hona. The breakdown of the complex material, organic material into the simple inorganic molecules. So, that is the decomposition. That process is decomposition. Or who are doing this? The microorganism. Those who carry this process of decomposition, they are known as decomposers. So, decomposers, what they do? They act on this complex substance. ठीक है, complex material पे act करके, they are just breaking them down into the simpler pieces. So, they act on the complex organic material like glucose, okay, and break them down into inorganic substance like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, okay. And now, the raw material for decomposition, the decomposers जो decompose करेंगे, what are the raw material? They include all the dead plant, dead animals, ठीक है, dead plant remains like leaf, bark, flower, stem, dead remain of animals and including the fecal matter, all this. ठीक है, प्लांट में अगर आप देखो डेड पार्ट ऑफ द प्लांट्स में आ गया लीफ, बार्क, फ्लावर, स्टेम, ये सब. एनिमल्स में डेड मैटर क्या हो गया? फीकल मैटर और द डेड ऑर्गेनिजम्स टुगेदर दे आर नोन एज डेट्राइटस. और इसी डेट्राइटस पे, ठीक है, द कॉम्प्लेक्स सब्सटेंस दे आर द डेट्राइटस, इसी पे अब डिकम्पोजर्स वर्क करेंगे. दे विल ब्रेक डाउन देम इनटू सिंपलर सब्सटेंस. So the decomposers completely dispose of the whole detritus. So these are detritus, dead plant remain, ये सारे क्या है? detritus है. Decomposers इस detritus को break करेंगे. So they dispose of the whole detritus and ultimately help in recycling of the nutrient. Okay, they help in nutrient cycling. Now the process of the decomposition, how does it take place? The decomposition process is a complex process and completed in different steps, not in a single step. So the important steps of decomposition, पहले fragmentation होता है, जिसमें जो organic material, complex organic material is broken down into simpler pieces. ठीक है, छोटे pieces में break down होते हैं, तो fragmentation is the first step. After that, catabolism, breakdown process. Okay, then leaching, humification, that means humus formation will take place. And finally, mineralization, it will be converted to minerals. So, ये सारा जो process है, fragmentation, all these steps are being performed only by the decomposers. And that decomposers will help in decomposition. Now, fragmentation में क्या होता है? Fragment, now, as you can see, the name suggests fragmentation. Refer to the process of breaking down of the detritus. तो detritus क्या है? Dead plants, dead animals, flowers, जो dead part बचे हैं, ठीक है, complex part है, उनको smaller particles में convert करना, that is fragmentation. और mostly they are done by the earthworm, ठीक है, detrivores, जो detritus को decompose करते हैं. So they are termites, earthworm. They feed on the detritus and causes the degradation of the organic material. Now, what is catabolism? As the name suggests, catabolism breakdown process है, process of degradation of the detritus. Detritus जो पहले fragments में हो गए हैं, आगे चल के वो और simpler pieces में हो जाएंगे, ठीक है, into soluble organic compound and inorganic substance by the bacteria and the fungi. So catabolism जो है, ठीक है, that this breakdown process is done only by the bacteria and the fungi into the soluble organic compound, soluble organic and inorganic substance. Now, bacteria and the fungi secrete specific enzymes to digest the particular substance. ठीक है, they secrete specific enzymes that are responsible for degradation of the detritus. So, different types of detritus को decompose करने के लिए, ठीक है, to digest करने के लिए different enzymes are produced by the bacteria and the fungi. Now, leaching. What is leaching? It is a process. In this process, what happened? The water-soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil and get precipitated as unavailable salt. Now, leaching में क्या होता है? Water-soluble inorganic जो nutrients होंगे, they will go down into the soil. Soil में it will pass on the different layer of the soil, all the water-soluble inorganic substance, and get precipitated as a unavailable salt. Now, next, humification and mineralization. So, humification, humus formation, decomposition result in the production of humus and inorganic nutrients, and the process involved in this formation of the humus, that is known as humification, and the process or inorganic nutrient formation जो process होगा, that is mineralization. So, these steps also, these come under the decomposition steps. Now, what is the features of humus? How does it look like? So, humus कैसे होते हैं? Dark color के, amorphous है, dark colored, amorphous, organic substance and highly resistant to microbial action. Okay, microbes do not destroy them properly. Okay, so they are highly resistant to microbial action. Humus are reservoir of the nutrient and helps in maintenance of the moisture of the soil and as well as the aeration also. ठीक है, जो soil का content है वो बहुत better होता because of the humus. Mineralization, what is? It's a release of the inorganic substance फ्रॉम ऑर्गेनिक मैटर। ठीक है, मिनरलाइजेशन में क्या होगा, ऑर्गेनिक सब्सटेंस और वी कैन से द कंज्यूमर्स व्हेन दे डाई। ठीक है, जब ये डेड हो गया इनका, इट विल अगेन बी कन्वर्टेड इनटू इनऑर्गेनिक सब्सटेंस। इनऑर्गेनिक सब्सटेंस में कन्वर्ट होंगे, बट हाउ, बाय द डिकम्पोजिशन प्रोसेस। By the process of decomposition, organic substance will be again converted into inorganic substance. Okay, so that is mineralization. So now we'll see what are the steps of decomposition. So simply, when we see the green leaves हो गए, dead part of the plant, ठीक है, dead part of the plant, we can take an example of the leaf which is dead. Okay, so this is dead leaf. Okay, so dead leaf is there. It will be, when it fall off from the main plant, the fragmentation will first take place. पहला step क्या होगा, fragmentation. Okay, it will be breaking down into smaller pieces. Fragmentation होगा इनका. Finally, this fragment pieces are very small fragments. So this small fragments will be more and more, it will be converted into smaller fragments. Smaller fragment. How? Here another step, that is catabolism. Catabolism will happen, और यहाँ पे main जो function होगा किनका होगा, बैक्टीरिया एंड फंजाई. बैक्टीरिया एंड फंजाई. Finally, the small fragments again will be converted to humus. So यहाँ पे क्या, कौन सा step होगा, humification. Humification. Okay, so it will be converted into humus, which is dark, amorphous, and even resistance to microbial action. Okay, finally, this humus will be converted into what? Into minerals. तो ये हो गया mineralization. Okay, so mineralization, finally, the dead leaf has traveled to these steps and finally एक कौन से form में आ गया? In the form of minerals. And this mineral formation is a very slow process. And we can also see the smaller fragments of this dead plant or the detritus can also go to leaching process. Okay, so this is the fifth process, that is leaching. Conversion of the smaller fragments into inorganic substance, soluble inorganic substance. So several steps are there in this decomposition process: fragmentation, catabolism, humification, mineralization, and here it was also leaching. Okay, now we can see what are the factors that affect the decomposition. The process of the decomposition, it is affected by certain factors. What are that? The process of decomposition depend upon the following factor. Firstly, oxygen. Mostly the decomposition that is carried out by oxygenic microorganism. That means the microorganism, they utilize oxygen. Okay, oxygen requiring process, ये decomposition. Okay, oxygen requiring, that means if the oxygen is provided, much more properly the decomposition take place. Now the rate of the decomposition is controlled by the chemical composition of the detritus. Detritus are the dead matter, dead plant हो, dead animal हो, flower, stem, जो भी है. तो किस तरह का substance है, उस substance, ये detritus का composition क्या है, on that the rate of the decomposition will depend. If the detritus is rich in lignin, pectin, suberin, ठीक है, lignin, chitin, suberin में अगर amount ज़्यादा होगा, ठीक है, so decomposition will be slower. But if the detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substance like sugar, the rate of the decomposition will be fast. Okay, will be fast when the water soluble substance are there and when nitrogen is there. if it is lignin, suberin, chitin, तो यहाँ पे इन्हें जो डिकम्पोज करना थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है, तो प्रोसेस जो है वो स्लो हो जाता है. Now, the climatic factor, definitely they also control the whole decomposition process. So it is controlling the rate of the decomposition, that is climatic factor. Temperature and soil affect the soil microbial flora and therefore regulate the rate of decomposition. Now, warmer temperature and humid environment. Temperature warm ho, environment humid, it will favor decomposition. So, the temperature between this 20 to 30 degrees centigrade, it is much favorable for this decomposition to take place. And lower temperature, that means lower than this temperature, and the low humidity, they all inhibit the decomposition process. Okay. Now, in this way, we have seen what are the different part of the biotic part and the abiotic part of the ecosystem. How does the decomposition take place? What is net primary productivity? What is gross productivity? So now, in the next lecture of this topic, okay, we'll continue about the energy flow. So thank you for watching. I hope you have understood the concept of this chapter. Thank you.